first line of defense is managers and leaders. I think they're incredibly helpful when it comes to recognizing the need for mental health. They're your first line of defense. They're working every single day with your employees, recognizing the signs and symptoms when it comes to mental health.
Welcome, everyone, to the People's First podcast. Thank you all for joining us. Have you probably noticed our hosts are a little different for this episode? You still get me, Jeremy Knipper, but we're here giving Troy a break and welcoming Jenn Lowry, Navigate's Vice President of Product and Strategy, as today's co-host. Today, Jenn and I are excited to chat with Katie Tarbill, Navigate's resident mental health coach. Katie is a licensed professional counselor in Texas and Nebraska and is here to talk about a topic that we're all passionate about: embracing mental health in the workplace. Jenn, Katie, welcome, and let's get started. Can you start by defining mental health and mental well-being for us a little bit?
Absolutely. And I think a poll that I have found that's important as we're walking through mental health in the workplace is there was a national poll from the American Psychiatric Association, and only 48% of workers feel comfortable discussing mental health with their colleagues. I think that's an important number for us to keep in the back of our mind as we're moving forward. Now, in regards to mental health versus mental well-being, mental health is going to be more of a clinical term that we're referring to the presence or absence of a mental illness. It can really encompass your emotional, your psychological, and your social well-being, and it's going to affect how someone thinks, how they feel, and how they act. Now, mental well-being is going to be a broader term, and it's going to focus on more of a positive state of mind, and that's going to encompass, think about like the ability to cope, resilience, and really focusing on the sense of overall life satisfaction. If we want to minimize those definitions, mental health can involve a diagnosis and a treatment plan, where mental well-being, think of it more preventative, and we're focusing on building skills and resources.
So would you say that mental well-being is a little bit of a more holistic approach to similar topic?
Mental health and mental well-being, you can take holistic approaches to both of them, but mental well-being, like I said, we're really focusing on that preventative measure and building skills and resources.
Katie, why don't you tell us a little bit about your journey into mental health, well-being, and healthcare in general?
So, believe it or not, I actually started as a sixth grade teacher. I was teaching sixth grade language arts in a small town, and my husband then began deploying quite a bit. And just as the deployments kept going and the more immersed in the military culture I became, and the more I started becoming friends with other military spouses, and we started having children of our own, and just seeing the impact that deployments, and even when, the parents go off for training, they're called TDYs. I was starting to see that impact, and I wanted to jump in and be able to help. Give back to the military community is what I would say, truthfully, is really what sparked my interest, and kind of seeing that sometimes there was a lack of mental health care for veterans or maybe their spouses or their kiddos. So I would say that's definitely what sparked my interest in exploring mental health.
So then you made the transition from teaching to counseling and coaching. Tell us about that a little bit.
So I actually started off with counseling. I was down in Texas. We were living down in Texas, goodness, for 5 or 6 years. And then I slowly made the transition into coaching. I will say the health coaching aspect was a hard transition for me. Obviously, that's more about, we're talking about, LDLs, A1Cs, things like that. So there was definitely pieces that I had to learn in regards to health coaching. But when I put the life coaching hat on, it flowed a lot more fluently for me, and I've loved it ever since.
That's awesome. In the past couple of years, what have you seen are some of the biggest trends that your participants are talking about? I know you're talking about the biometric risk when it comes to coaching, but on the other side of the house, what are some of the things that you're seeing most frequently from people you're talking to?
Honestly, some of the biggest trends that I'm hearing is holistic approaches, mindfulness based approaches. How can we do this in the least invasive way? Are we going to look at journaling? Are we going to start looking at meditation? People are even really going as far as finding grounding images for themselves to put around their offices. So we're hearing a lot of that. In regards to people coming in and talking to me, we're hearing a lot of communication skills. That's a really big one that we're hearing right now. Coping strategies. Hey, I want to make sure my toolbox is full of strategies, stress management techniques, and then burnout, whether that's happening from being a caregiver at home, or maybe there's a lot of deadlines and due dates at work. So those are some of the big topic areas that we're hearing.
Jenn, speaking of trends, from a market standpoint, the past 5 years have really taken off in our space in a discussion about mental health and mental well-being in general. Can you talk about some of the emerging trends or some of the changes in the market space that you've noticed?
Yeah, I mean, certainly COVID changed a lot in our space. When COVID hit so unexpectedly, there was just this shift from everybody being in person to everybody speaking as we are today on camera, virtually. So naturally, healthcare and well-being shifted towards that as well. It really evolved, and I would say telehealth has been in existence for a really long time. However, it really didn't pick up utilization until COVID. So I will say that's probably a positive that's come out of COVID. And it's really continued to be one of the market trends that we continue to see today. Everyone had to shift into this virtual space and be comfortable with talking to each other, but also talking to doctors, nurses, and then, of course, mental health counselors or mental well being coaches in this virtual space. So it's really, I would say COVID has been beneficial into us evolving into a space where mental health is more readily available at our fingertips. And I would say that trend continues today.
Jenn, who is the based on the research and based on the things you've seen in this market space, who are the most impactful people from a mental health standpoint at a workforce?
Certainly, first line of defense is managers and leaders. I think they are so incredibly, um, I think they're incredibly helpful when it comes to recognizing the need for mental health. They're your first line of defense. They're working every single day with your employees, recognizing the signs and symptoms when it comes to mental health, or as Katie mentioned, burnout, or even just the stress that they're experiencing at home. We know that most of the time employees are present at work in their everyday life, right? 40 hours a week, at least we're spending at work. So it's important for those managers to be armed and equipped with the skill set to be able to recognize when somebody needs those support, but also recognizing or being able to discuss that with their employees. So leaders being comfortable to say, hey, we have these mental health resources and here's what they are.
Speaking of mental health resources, Katie, can you talk to me about some of the things that we're providing for employees out there and managers that are going to help them out? What are some of the best things and tips you could give anybody who's listening to make their workplace a more friendly environment to mental health concerns?
Biggest thing I can say is education. Education and knowledge surrounding mental health and mental well being is so paramount, not just for your leaders, but for your colleagues, for your team members, making sure that everyone is educated. You can do mental health first aid. That's a course to help individuals build the necessary skills to help another individual who is suffering from a mental health related challenge. There's other things that you can do, such as find help, which can help people find and connect with resources that are in their local areas. You can make sure that 988 is posted within your workspace. Those resources that individuals can use in your community, make sure that things are posted for everyone to be able to see and the visuals are up.
Yeah, and Katie, I'd just add to that. I think so many of our employers that we work with offer just great benefits to include mental health resources such as an EAP or even direct access to mental health coaching as you offer with Navigate or even vendors such as Talkspace. So making sure our managers, I would say, are also equipped to be able to speak to those benefits and offer that information to the employees.
Well, I think that's really important, Jen, too, is telehealth is removing barriers that used to exist for some people. And that is so important to really highlight that we are able to remove some of those barriers.
Katie, what are some of the things that we're going to see in mental health first aid? I know Jen and I are going to be going through training. Most of Navigate's leadership team, and I think the entire company at some point, will be going through mental health first aid training. What are some of the things that we can expect in that course?
So, the biggest thing that you can expect is when we go through mental health first aid, we are not expecting you to diagnose. We are expecting you to notice. You are a noticer, as they say. That's going to be a really big thing. And then creating safe spaces for individuals to feel like you're listening non-judgmentally to them, to make sure that you're aware of your surroundings and all of those different things. And I think it's going to be a really great course for you guys to go through.
I'm excited to learn. I'm excited to learn about, like, just again, how can we notice and care for the employees?
Another big piece that you guys will dig into in mental health first aid is stigma. And I think we can all agree stigma is a really big part within the workplace. Think about people are maybe they're fearful that they're going to lose their job. Maybe they don't want to be the office gossip. And I know that none of us would hope that that happens within our workspace, but that could be a real fear for someone. They don't want to be the office gossip. If they're a leader, maybe they're in a leadership role, they don't want to look like they've lost the authority within their leadership role. And then another important thing is cultural reasons. And that's a piece of stigma that a lot of people leave out.
So recently, we've talked about the past couple of years, we've seen an explosion in mental health as a primary concern for employers and employees alike. Jen, what are some of the tools and resources we've seen pop up that are now a part of, sort of the common discourse in mental health?
Yeah, I certainly think data is power here. So one of those data points that can be collected is just real-time sentiment from the employees. So getting a pulse on how they're feeling on a regular basis. Here at Navigate, we use what's called pulse surveys. So in those pulse surveys, we can send out, how are you feeling today? Or just in that moment, getting that data really helps the employer understand over time, what do those trends look like? Is there a declining trend or trajectory in mental health that needs to be addressed? I think the other data point that's really helpful for employers to really get eyes on is their medical claims data. Certainly that tells a really good story around some of those clinical diagnoses, Katie, that you addressed. So if those are bubbling to the top as far as the trends, then it's really about identifying the resources and tools that they can deploy to the employees to support them. And I would say some of those resources and tools, as I mentioned, is, around the EAP resources, but not just providing it. It's really helping them understand what EAP is and how they can utilize it and how many sessions do they get and what services can they receive or expect from EAP. Mental well-being coaching is another. Also, any of those employers that offer virtual mental health is certainly beneficial as they're looking at their data and be able to support those who need, whether it's mental well-being support or mental health support with that diagnosis and treatment. Some of those vendors do include Talkspace, of course, who we partner with to be able to provide mental health counseling as well as psychiatry.
One of the things I am most proud of that Navigate provides is the social determinants of help tool. Katie, you mentioned it earlier, findhelp.org. That's just another one of the data points that can help us understand the needs of our participants.
Wearable devices, that's a huge push right now because you can track your sleep, you can track your stress, you can track other health data that you want to see. So wearable devices are a really big push right now too.
Oh, that's interesting. The person who shares an office next to me is a wearable device user and passionate about the stress levels that she sees from her watch as an indicator of good mental health.
The most important thing with the wearable devices is that it brings the awareness, but you have to have an action plan to be able to address the stress levels or the sleep patterns that you're having.
One of the things I've noticed the most is the differences in generational approach to mental health. For myself, I know growing up that there certainly was a stigma about discussing mental health. And it seems to me like younger generations are much more open to that. Katie, can you talk a little bit about that?
I would completely agree. And again, that's just a part of stigma that we have to continue to work on breaking. I think we talked about earlier generational stigma. There's cultural reasons. You may be fearful of losing your job. There's just a variety of different stigma points that we all collectively have to work on breaking. And the best way we can do that is creating an open and safe environment for people to feel comfortable enough to express their creativity, and their engagement at work too is going to help.
So I also think about Katie, as you just mentioned, creating those safe spaces. I think about creating the safe spaces, not just among friends or family, but also in the workplace. For those leaders or managers to create that safe space, a lot of it is them being able to be comfortable in speaking about it, not just about their own tools and resources, but maybe even being a little bit more vulnerable about their own experience in burnout or their own stress levels. I also think it's really important for those leaders to practice what they preach in regards to utilizing the tools and resources. So, not just talking the talk, but walking the walk when it comes to utilizing the resources that are available, but also taking the time off your own PTO and really taking the time off, right? Not checking the email, not doing any work during in those moments. So that would also reinforce that with the employees.
I feel like Jen's talking directly to me with that.
I am. Jeremy, you have some time coming up in a few weeks. So I'll be checking to make sure you're not in Teams or an email. I'm going to watch that dot at the top.
I completely agree with you, Jen. You have to get comfortable in the uncomfortable, is exactly what I say all the time. Get comfortable in the uncomfortable. Leaders set the tone, and leaders have to lead by example.
Katie, maybe you can talk a little bit about some of the more holistic aspects to mental health. And I'm thinking about the value of fitness programs, of mindfulness workshops, of volunteering and charitable donations. A lot of people don't necessarily know how key a role that can play. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Absolutely. So, like you said, Jeremy, a few of the holistic approaches working out, having good nutrition, journaling, mindfulness workshops, volunteering that all creates a feeling of balance. That is us looking at ourselves as a whole body approach. We are looking at our emotional health, our mental health, our physical health, our spiritual health. And like I said, when we're working out, when we're having good nutrition, when we're doing those mindfulness workshops, we're pouring into all of those different buckets to create that overall balance.
One of the things I think that's most interesting when you talk about a balanced approach to well-being, particularly when you look at things like charitable giving and that feeling that you get and the health you get, is that we see programs that incorporate those kind of things have much better results than programs that don't. I don't know that it's amazingly intuitive, but I think that there's certainly an approach that just values the feeling that you're contributing to the world around you, and you get back something from that. Jen, we've seen much higher engagement rates with programs that have charitable donations in there. Do you have any thoughts on why that might be?
I think it also has to do with not just creating a sense of purpose for those individuals, but it also is an indication that my employer cares for me beyond my physical state and my physical health and me being present at work. They really do care if I'm contributing to my community or, again, investing in my spiritual, mental health, or even my purpose in life. So I feel like that connection alone is why we see greater engagement there. It truly does indicate that my employer cares for me.
Completely agree with that. And honestly, allowing volunteer hours, you're helping your team members connect their home and their community purpose to their work purpose, which just builds that greater sense of community within the workplace.
So leaders out there, make sure your people are taking advantage of all the great resources that are available. You need to be the advocate for all of those things. PTO, volunteer work. Obviously, it needs to be right for the individual, but make sure that everybody knows about all the good benefits that are going on. And if you have our Total Health product, that'll help you out a little bit in making sure that everybody's aware of all the good stuff that we're doing. Jenn, maybe you can talk to us a little bit about, and Katie as well, some of the things that we need to be thinking about as leaders, as employees in the workplace that we can do to contribute to the overall mental well-being of the people around us. And I'm thinking not just resources, but maybe there's policies that we can act, maybe there's tools that we can do. What are some of the things that you think of when I say, all right, what can we all contribute?
Yeah. So the first thing that comes to mind for me is looking at your policies around time off. So are you as an employer considering giving your employees time off to volunteer and again, contribute to the community so that they can connect the dots? I think, Katie, you said it really well of connecting their sense of purpose back to the workplace. I would also say here at Navigate, we have the incredible opportunity of having weekly mental well-being hours, and we have the opportunity to use those for whatever we find fit. Maybe that is taking, your child to the doctor, or maybe it is just some self-care hours, giving us the time each week at a set number of hours. We actually get 3 per week to determine what we need best in the moment is just incredibly helpful for our own mental health and mental well-being.
Katie, same question. And anything that you would call out as a really important piece to the puzzle?
A really important piece of the puzzle, and I know I said this earlier, but it's really education. Whether you are doing that through workshops, maybe you're doing lunch and learns with your team members, or you're putting them through the mental health first aid course so that they can become those noticers within the workspace. Education is really a key point. And then having that visibility. All of your team members should know what's available to them, whether it's EAP, whether it's the wellness hours, putting up bulletin boards, reminding people take your time off, or just showing that positivity. I would say education and visibility are the biggest things.
Katie, I'll just add to that, if you don't mind. I think also leveraging your employee resource group or those wellness champions. Again, we talked about being comfortable with the uncomfortable, making sure that, again, they're armed with the tools and resources and equipped. And maybe that is each of those team members also becoming certified in that mental health first aid so that they can have those conversations, recognize the signs and symptoms. But again, just putting the word out there to make sure that they're talking the talk as well.
And for me, I look at leadership and I go, every leader needs to have training. And I don't mean the kind of training that educates you on policy, though you do need to be educated on that. I mean the kind of training you get from mentoring and from seeing good examples of people doing it. And I think we've all got a leader that we can look back and go, oh, that person really did have my best interest at heart, and take the concept of that and apply it to how you want to be a leader. The person that leads you is really, really important to your mental health on a regular basis. So go out there and be good leaders. All right, Jenn and Katie, the podcast ends every time on a segment we call Best Day Ever. And I am not the best person around here, but we need to, make sure we stay true to the nature of the podcast. And in that vein, maybe you can tell us something that you would say is the best day ever.
All right. So my best day ever is recently my son tried out for a club soccer team, and we received the news that he made the team. And this is a really big deal. He's turning 14 this week. He has tried out twice before, tried out for a team. So he tried out for the middle school team, got a no, tried out for the club team previously, got a no. So certainly we talk about mental health, the anxiety a parent feels in the moments waiting for an email to come across that they made or did not make a team is real. But we are incredibly excited that he made the team and he is just ready to hit the ground or the field running, I should say.
Well, that's great. Congratulations. Katie, best day ever.
So, in the spirit, since we're talking about mental well being, I am going to say my best day ever is when we brought our oldest dog home. And why I say that is since this episode is focused on mental well being, he has been such a grounding rock for me, my husband, my kids. He was there when we brought babies home. He's been through every deployment with us, he's been through every move. And he's always made things so much easier for us. And he's given us a safe space to land. And he's always helped with our mental well being. So I'm going to say he's my best day ever.
Katie, my best day ever is about my dog like a third of the time. So I'm right there with you.
Katie, what kind of dog is he?
I have two Argentine Dogos. We have a male and then a female. And then our male is actually service trained.
Oh, that's amazing.
So he turns 13 this year. He's our old man.
I love that.
Yeah.
What's his name?
Kratos.
Nice.
I'm not going to say this, but you guys can assume who named him. My husband named him, and then the female's name is Piper. You can assume I named her.
Well, those who play video games, we know where that name came from. So excited about that. For me, best day ever is my wife returning home. She's been overseas. She takes kids. She's a teacher, and she takes kids overseas every other year. So she's been gone for about a week now, and house is falling apart without her. Just me and the dog sitting there not knowing what to do with ourselves. So, we need to up that mental health game and get my wife home. So she'll be back very soon, and I am very much looking forward to it. And that will be the best day ever for me. Jenn, Katie, thank you very much for the conversation today. To everyone listening out there in the HR world or in any workspace, we appreciate you tuning in and spending your time. We hope we brought value to your day. We hope you got a little bit out of this and something to put into action. Thank you. Keep doing good things, and we'll talk to you later.